So today we had Marissa Solis with us for Giant Stories. It was an unbelievable discussion. This is a podcast about storytelling, and Marissa is the SVP of Global Brand and Consumer Marketing for the National Football League. The NFL and the stories that they have to tell, she actually said it in the interview, it's one of the hardest jobs you can think of because there's so many stories you can tell. So the conversation was focused around how they find different ways to connect with their audiences across different demographics and even different geographies. We talk about the NFL moving across to play in Europe and how those fans engage versus how they engage in Mexico or how they might engage in Sao Paulo. It was a fascinating conversation and really something I think any brand marketer or advertising agency can walk away from, really understanding how to leverage the assets that you have and connect with your audience in meaningful and genuine ways. And we hope you enjoy it. So we always start out our podcast by asking our guests to tell us a little bit about their story before we dive in.
Sure. I mean, my story is anything but linear. It is it's kind of a great adventure, and it's come a little bit full circle, to be honest with you. Immigrant from Mexico, grew up in the border area in South Texas, and growing up
In the valley, huh?
grew up in the valley, and growing up, with immigration kind of always at the forefront. My dream was always to be an ambassador. So I went to Georgetown to become an ambassador. I went to the School of Foreign Service and pretty much had that in the bag. I mean, I had my, foreign service exam. I was going into the foreign service, and 2 weeks before graduation, my dean pulled me to the side and said, if you really want to be an ambassador, you may want to think about going into corporate America, making a name for yourself, make lots of money, contribute to a campaign, and then maybe one day someone will appoint you or something.
Okay.
Kind of a dose of reality. And so that made me pivot. And I pivoted quickly. I landed in Procter & Gamble in Latin America. I didn't study business or marketing. I had no idea what brand marketing was. And yet there I was at 22, in San Juan, Puerto Rico, ready to market brands like Tide and Downy and Pampers. And it started a great adventure that later took me into politics back here in Texas and Deloitte and, eventually PepsiCo, where I thought I was going to retire and live out the rest of my, marketing days. And one serendipitous day, I got this incredible phone call to join the league. If you get this phone call, come join the NFL. It's one of those things you really can't say no to. So,
Right.
And here I am, almost 4 years later. And it's been a crazy, crazy ride, but a little bit full circle, because we'll talk about how I do feel a lot of times that I am a bit of an ambassador.
For sure.
So it is a bit full circle, kind of a, great story that it's been.
Out of curiosity, what was your dream assignment when you were in foreign service? Like, where did you want to get posted?
I actually wanted to be anywhere in Latin America because that was the dream growing up with immigration. I thought I would bring, our cultures together. And so, whether it was Mexico, Chile, Argentina, I mean, any of those countries would have been amazing. Hey, you never know. I
No.
can still go one of these days. So
That's amazing. That's awesome. The NFL's, is there a game in Mexico City this year?
There is not a game in Mexico City. They are actually finishing up the Azteca for the World Cup.
Oh, okay.
So
Kind of an important thing.
yeah. So once that's done, we will be back in Mexico City. So you better believe that is a place we certainly won't abandon.
Oh, no.
But Mexico, we had Sao Paulo last year.
Yes.
We'll go back this year. Now we're adding Madrid. So yes, very, very exciting times in the international front.
So from a brand story perspective, you always wonder how sports resonate in different geographies and in different cultures. What do you think it is about the NFL in Spain, or obviously they've been in England for several years, for decades, really playing games up there. What is it about the NFL that resonates from a brand and experience perspective to foreign fans?
It's a great question, and we have to start with, the essence of the brand. We are by far, arguably, the most, powerful league in America. We are a macrocosm of America, a reflection of that American dream.
Yep.
So, when you go abroad, it's a very different story. We're the market leader here. We command, excitement and attention. Abroad, we are anything but that. And so we're very much a challenger brand. So many people don't understand the game, don't know the game.
It's so nuanced.
It's very nuanced.
Yeah.
And so as we go abroad, I think it's a little bit of, taking the core elements of the brand that are timeless and that resonate here, that we'll know are, will resonate with all of humanity, no matter where you are. So the excitement, the thrill of the game, the epic possibilities, and the fact that the league brings people together, the game brings people together. So that joy of coming together to experience this thrill and this, stage of epic possibilities, that is true wherever you are.
Yeah.
I think then we have to really be thoughtful about the timeliness and then the local aspect of the sport and how we tie into that local aspect. In Mexico, it's been years of NFL history, and there's teams that are very ingrained, whether it's the Dallas Cowboys or the Steelers. And so we take some of that history and help build the fan base with the local culture there.
So talk about going to Sao Paulo versus, say, Berlin.
Yeah.
And how it shows up.
Very, very different. So in Berlin, as in London also, it's a real celebration of coming together. So when you go to a game in, Berlin this year, Munich last year, it's people come and it's like a parade of jerseys, right? It almost doesn't matter what two
It's almost like an all-star game.
teams are playing,
shows up
because everybody shows up with an NFL jersey, and and so it really isn't about one versus the other. I think it's just a celebration of the game. It was so cool in Munich when you hear the crowd and the Germans singing, singing all together, country roads, and they don't know a word of English, and yet they're all hugging and singing along. And that is the essence of unity. Like, we are the ultimate unifier. And that's, I think, the brand theme that you're going to see as we go. Brazil was very different. Brazil really was about embracing, there's a joy in that country and just a flavor and an atmosphere of, it's like carnival all the time, and capturing that celebratory joy, was really special to us, and making sure that Brazilians felt that the game could also be their game, because their game is the other football, right? And so we have to kind of earn that spot in their hearts of saying, hey, American football can be our game too. And I think when we were at that game last year, it was just so emotional when they played the anthems and all of the Brazilians in the stadium just singing their anthem at the top of their lung, and that Brazilian pride, but still in an American football game. So really, really exciting.
Yeah. So what's interesting about the game and the players themselves, and I would say today's NFL versus maybe 10, 20 years ago, obviously the players are given a ton of liberty to celebrate on the field, and to, when they score touchdowns, like all the rituals that they have, which is a lot more flashy than it used to be. And I think societally here, it was a little bit like, don't showboat it. Now I think we've come to embrace it. Seems like if you think about soccer around the world, they are so much more demonstrative, after a goal than what they do. It seems like that would be one of the things that would really resonate well with a lot of the countries that you guys are playing, because they're used to, to soccer stars scoring a goal, celebrating, doing these things. And so when they see the NFL players doing that, I think that would be a really nice moment of connection between the game and the fans to sort of pull them in.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's a lot deeper than that. There's an actual strategy behind all that, because I think, if you look back to 2019, 2020, where the league was here in America, the league wasn't necessarily in the best of places. And the relationship that the league had with the players, was at times tense and rocky. And I think as we've come, we knew that in order to truly change the face of the league and truly make it approachable and human and inclusive, you had to see the players in a very different light. And it's no accident that our strategy is called helmets off. I mean, that is what our marketing strategy is called, because it literally was and is about taking the helmets off the players, seeing them as the human beings that they are on and off the field, right? And so on-field celebrations certainly are a reflection of that humanity. And then showing them off the field in their day-to-day lives and how they are as, husbands and brothers and sons and all the things, community members, that's really opened up, I think, a whole world for people to really see. And I think it'll help us globally too.
Yeah.
As people get to know them.
Well, if you think, HBO having partnered with the NFL for so long for, the preseason.
Hard Knocks.
Yeah.
Hard Knocks is fantastic. Yeah.
Now it's much more of a year-round thing. You guys make a team.
And now you see quarterback and you see receiver. So yes, that content also has helped to open the doors globally and here in terms of like really showcasing the behind the scenes, the players, a lot of the humanity and truly the storytelling behind the league, which I think makes it all the more exciting.
Yeah. I mean, what I love about Hard Knocks is they'll always focus on a couple of rookies just trying to make the team. And, every now and then they'll get lucky and sometimes they won't, but just getting their background and where they come from and, the effort that they had to put in to get to even where they are to even have this opportunity, I think is incredibly captivating. And especially if they make the team and then they start doing well, then all of a sudden, like their brand profile sort of explodes from that.
Yes, for sure.
It's neat. I love it. Talk a little bit about the growth of the game in terms of increasing fan interest. You guys have done some really deliberate, not just work with, not just broader appeal to, let's say, like the Hispanic demographic, but really investing in the communities where your teams are with the Latino Youth Awards that you guys are doing and other things like that. Because obviously there's a rich story there that you guys are being very deliberate about.
Yeah, I mean, again, for the league, the currency of the league is relevance. We have to be relevant now and in the future and to future generations. And I think we had a real realization that if we weren't relevant to that future generation, business is over. And that future generation is increasingly multicultural, very, very different in terms of the way they behave, the values that they have, the way they consume the sport. So everything that we're doing now is very deliberate to ensure that we're capturing that generation. And you talked about particularly the Latino community. I mean, when we looked and defined what our growth audiences would be, and that's exactly what we call them, growth audiences, we saw that it would be, Gen Z and Gen A. So 35 and under, huge, right? And more than 25% of that generation is Latino. So by definition, we needed to appeal to that community. Women is a very important community to embrace, to make sure we engage with. I mean, they're making, way more than half of the commercial decisions in the household. And they're also great fans and provide, a whole different perspective on the game. So as we define those growth audiences, we've also been defining the way we tell stories, the way we engage. Another really important piece is the fact that it isn't just about the game and how exciting and thrilling it is, but, the NFL family, we see ourselves as a force for good. We want to transcend the game and really inspire positive change in our communities. And so ensuring that our fan base comes along with us in that journey and gives back to every single local community that we touch is super, super important. So whether it's Latino Youth Honors or Inspire Change, Crucial Catch, there's so many different initiatives that we do to make sure that we uplift the community.
So from a storytelling perspective, talk about, marketing the NFL to me, who grew up, John Elway was my hero. I grew up in Denver. So like I'm, steeped in that era of the NFL. Talk about how you look at Gen Z millennial and tell this, like, what are the most important pivots you guys have made from, marketing to, and still marketing to people like me, but also making sure that you're appealing to the younger.
Yeah. I mean,
what is it about the brand that appeals to them in a different way?
I will tell you, before we get into the specifics, marketing the NFL is the hardest thing ever because we are truly the macrocosm of America. So by definition, anything we do, 50% of the people are going to love it, and 50% of the people will absolutely hate it.
Yeah.
So we can never please every single person, right? But it is our job to ensure we engage you and the future generation. And that's why storytelling is so important, because there's so many different stories.
Yeah.
That's why the data is actually very important, because the data helps us identify motivations and, what kind of stories to tell to what audience.
Yeah.
And we've done a lot of work in creating what we call fan journeys. So there's literally hundreds of fan journeys. Your fan journey is probably very different than mine. But understanding the moments that matter to you and how to get to those moments to get you excited and get you engaged versus the moments that matter to me is really interesting. And so we'll play out the scenario. You're probably a big ardent fan. You've lived the history. And so for you, this is an important time, right? Draft is about to happen at the end of the month. Draft defines teams. It defines wins. I mean, who would have thought Jaden Daniels would have done what he did for the Washington Commanders? My goodness.
Yeah.
The Washington Commanders were nowhere. Now they're like at the top of their game. So how important and what a pivotal moment this is.
Yeah.
And so I want to make sure I reach you in that way. And maybe I'll throw at you some of the awesome stories of Combine and get you excited about some of the things and skill sets we saw, and where's Sanders going to go? Where's, that is you, right? I am much more emotional and connected to the stories and the humanity. So for me, it might be about that story of, that kid who grew up in Germany, who saw the game when it came to town and all of a sudden fell in love with the league, starts training, and now has an opportunity at the draft to be drafted into the American sport in the NFL. And, I may want to see what that kid's mom is feeling, how he, grew up through life. And so a little bit more of the emotional storytelling, and that's just draft. As we think about any given game, I think it was Cowboys and Pittsburgh Steelers.
Okay.
This year, very important game. It's a nice little rivalry.
Yeah.
You obviously would want to watch it and see everything. Probably a 15-year-old wouldn't even sit for 4 minutes to watch the game. And so
they'd be looking at their phone if they were
or they'd be looking at their phone. And so partnerships like what we did with The Simpsons, and we did that game completely in an alternative cast, with The Simpsons playing it. And, when you see Homer or someone making a home run touchdown, it's kind of a fun thing. And so just different ways to engage with different audiences. We engage a lot with the wives of the players, sisters, moms, to storytell. I mean, they have hilarious stories to tell, and
some of them
sometimes they have more followers than the players themselves.
Yeah.
And so it's just a great way to, again,
Kelsey's wife for sure is a good example.
Kelsey's,
She's got a much bigger following than he does.
She's amazing. And just people like a Kristen Jusek who designed the jacket for Taylor, and now all of a sudden she's like household name. She's got a big deal. Fashion has been big. Last year we took Joe Burrow to Fashion Week in Paris, and that just sparked all sorts of conversation in the summer time frame, right? When, the league is supposed to be quote unquote off season, and all of a sudden everyone's talking about what's the league doing in Paris Fashion Week. But it's things like that where you really extend the story to all sorts of different angles and audiences. And
I think that's one of the things that the league has done brilliantly is to figure out how to extend the calendar. So whether it's like, okay, free agency just opened up, what's going on there?
There is no off season.
Yeah, literally. And then there's OTAs, and then there's all these different things that are happening. One of the things that the NFL did that I thought was brilliant, which is just exploded, is moving the draft out of New York and going into all the different cities.
It's been so much fun.
I just remember where the first kind of whoa moment was when they were in Nashville, and all of Broadway was,
it was
however many people.
Awesome. I mean, Detroit last year was unbelievable. Like you would think, people were skeptical about having a draft in Detroit, and the entire city came out, and it was just, that you could feel the spirit of Detroit there.
Yeah.
And it was just great. And obviously having Eminem open up with the commissioner was
Oh my
great.
gosh. Yeah.
And now we're going to Green Bay. Like that thing's going to be unbelievable. It's going to be in Lambeau Field.
Is that where they're going to do it?
Like it's inside
in
Lambeau
the
Field,
stadium.
the big stage, and there's going to be just people everywhere. I mean,
Oh, wow.
I think, if you are an aspiring NFL player and you understand the meaning of that place and the history of
Yeah.
that place, I just think, it gives me chills to even think like, wow, I could be drafted to the National Football League in Lambeau Field. Like,
Yeah.
what a cool thing. So,
Well, it just is. Yeah. To your point, it's one of the most unique venues in terms of the city that it's within, by obviously the smallest market, but probably one of the top 2 or 3 fan bases in all of football.
oh, for sure. For
They
sure.
do there. That's amazing. So talk about, so obviously you represent the league and the brand, but you work with 32 teams
Absolutely.
that all have their own brands, their own stories, their own personalities. Talk about that integration and partnership with specific teams and how you guys work together from a storytelling perspective.
Yeah. I mean, like you said, every team has their own brand, every team has their own story. And they have to develop that story, right? But they also have to coexist within the broader league. And I think it is a really great collaboration in terms of elevating the unifier, the epic possibilities, the force for good. Like all of those are things that we all believe in that
Yep.
put us all together. But then each team is very unique, right? Miami talks about them wanting to be the key to the Spanish speaking world because of where they are. Obviously we talk about the Dallas Cowboys and they're America's team. The Chiefs are talking about being the world's team. And now you see the Vikings and what they've been able to do to build their brand. And now they're going abroad in London and everybody knows the Vikings in London. And
Yeah.
it's a really, really interesting way because I think it goes deeper. It allows us to tell a unifying story, but in so many cases, right? Because you can tell it in LA in 2 different ways. There's 2 teams there,
Right.
All the way to New York, and every team has their own little, special sauce.
And the teams that, whether it's the Niners or the Patriots, they're Cowboys that have stacked championships. And then you've got your Clevelands of the world, which have never even been to the Super Bowl, which is, I think that they would probably look on that as probably sort of a negative cachet, but it's a unique cachet about them. And, they're like the Browns, constantly trying to, whether it's, changing quarterbacks or coaches or whatever, trying to, figure out that formula forever.
But there is this inherent hope.
Yeah.
That exists in all of them.
Hopium is real.
And
that's what the draft is all about.
You'll
right?
see it at draft. Yeah. And even at the beginning of the season,
yeah,
everyone's on equal footing. Any team can win. I think that's the magic of the league.
Yeah.
Which is very different, by the way, than most sports, and especially in Europe, where there's usually always a clear leader. The beginning of the season, you don't know.
Right.
And even, this season going into week 18, I think there were still
5 or 16.
No, there was like 28 teams that could still make the playoffs.
Oh, wow.
Like in that last week, it was like, you knew the ones that had already been in, but there were very few that were eliminated.
But into your
that
point,
late in the game.
And to your point, nobody at the beginning of last year would have predicted Washington did what they were.
Oh, no, not at all. And then look at Detroit. Detroit's just a great story. The Texans are a great, there's so many great stories. And, of course, people ask me, if I have a team and I love all the teams now that I know their stories, but right. I came from Dallas. So obviously I have an affinity to the Cowboys and they've been my team. But once you get there and you understand all the different stories and what all these teams have gone through, I can't help but really look out for the ones that I really want to see, succeed or something happen. So that story comes full circle.
Yeah. Well, and
very cool.
having traveled around all the cities, you see what those bonds are between the community and that team, and what it represents and what they mean. And that's a unique perspective for sure. I want to talk a little bit about flag football and the NFL's efforts. And I love at the end of the spot that you guys ran trying to get flag football as a varsity sport in every single state. But talk about the genesis of that and how you guys have invested in that.
Yeah, I mean, I think flag football is such a unique sport because it's so inclusive. Anybody can play, any gender, any ability level, and it's really opened the door, particularly for youth participation. So when you think about the strategy to bring more people into the league and expand our fan base and then educate an international fan base about the sport, flag football is perfect.
Absolutely.
And so for us, it started really with, I think it was 2 years ago when we did our Super Bowl spot that featured Diana.
Yep.
And talked her story,
She
world champion. I mean, and that's who she is. World champion, Mexican national team, just a terrific, terrific ambassador to the sport. And that spot was so critical in just really building massive awareness because it got so many eyeballs all over the world.
For sure.
And it just started the revolution, right? It was that spot that created the momentum that then got us to LA 28. So
amazing.
When we became,
for listeners who don't know, it's going to be
Olympic sport in LA 28. We are in the process of going to Brisbane to pitch for that so that we're in the next Olympics as well. And so that is a big deal, right? Because people start to see a path there to potentially being an Olympic champion. And so how that connects in America to high school sports,
right.
So important, right, for it to be recognized and legitimized as an official high school sport. Because
Absolutely.
Once it's an official sport, it opens the path to NCAA and scholarships and potentially playing professionally. And so the pipeline for these kids could be huge. And, obviously for boys, but boy, I can't stop speaking about the opportunities that it has for girls, for young girls and women to really participate in the sport. And so it's been a real fight to get there. Every club is involved and, the community's involved to make it happen. We are, I think, at 15 states official. There's 19 in pilot. So it's a very, near possibility that all 50 states will be there.
That would be incredible.
And then, with LA 28 looming, we now have, speaking of extending the calendar, we added the flag championships in July. Okay. So for the first time, that was last year, it's broadcast on ESPN, and that's everything from under 10 all the way to adult.
Oh, wow.
So imagine you're, 15-year-old girl playing, playing on national television.
That's awesome.
And then the potential 2 years later to go on and play in the Olympics and win a medal. I mean, it's just a really, really inspiring thing.
What's interesting about it too is it's obviously another avenue for a broader demographic to fall in love with the game, which if they stick with it and they stay with it, there's a million examples if you look at front offices of any major sports league of people who played the sport and then went on to front office roles. So talk about, I know you guys are putting a huge focus on that across the NFL too, as far as women's opportunities in the front office.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot that's being done, not just the front office, but, coaches, position.
Reps. Yeah.
So all kinds of position for women. We have an incredible program called the Accelerator Program that introduces, really talented women leaders to owners across the league, and, really starts to place them, whether it is in coaching positions,
right.
Or in the front office. As an executive myself, I mean, I've been the recipient of development programs and to really understand the business of the league, which is really incredible. And so we've seen the growth of, women representation in every aspect of the sport. We have women presidents now, women owners. So it's really exciting. Women executives. So yeah, it's incredibly exciting. And I think the link of from participation all the way to potential ownership, it's exciting.
Very much.
Yeah.
So taking it back to storytelling, you obviously, so the NFL, to your point, it's almost an impossible job because you could tell a million different kinds of stories. So you've seen what's worked well, you've seen what's resonated well for you guys. But as you look around, because you obviously spent a lot of time with PepsiCo, with P&G, as you look around the marketing scape and you see the stories that brands are telling, when you think about it, what are you like? If I see one more one more type of story this way, I think I'm just going to lose my mind because it's stale or it's disingenuous or there's just way too many of them. What when you look around, what do you see? You're like,
Yeah, I mean, I think any type of story that is well, first of all, transactional. There's still a lot of transactional stories out there like, "Hey, I'll give you this if you just do that." I think people see right through that, and especially young people. They don't.
yeah,
It's the death of an influencer, quite frankly. In this kind of influencer world that we live in,
yep,
if you see right through someone that gets paid to push something, I mean, that's it.
yep,
It. I think you see a lot of tropes out there
still,
still.
yeah,
uh, on anything, whether it's women, the Latino community, young people, and that's just a big no. That's just a big no, right? With so much access to information and data, I think it's just the onus is on brands to really do their homework and understand deeper motivations and tell human stories, that appeal to much more than the wallet. So that's I think one big thing, like not transactional, no tropes, or just doing crazy things for the sake of crazy things, right? A lot of stunty,
yeah,
kind of stunty things that I've seen also
yep.
that haven't worked.
Well, I can imagine that having worked with the NFL now, the cachet that the league has, the fandom that the league has, your access as a league to influencers and who don't do it in a transactional way, like they are born and bred Bills fans, Rams fans,
Oh yeah.
whatever fan, like that they will almost step up and say, how can I help or how can I promote? And there's such a much more genuine feel for that, I think, that you guys have access to
Well,
in ways
it's a
in
very
ways that a
different,
lot of
yeah,
brands
it is
don't.
a very different model.
Yeah,
Because the value exchange is quite different.
yeah,
It is all about access to the game, and allowing the creator or the influencer to tell their stories.
yep,
And they are people who are passionately, they're very passionate about the team or the league or an aspect of the league.
yeah,
If you follow Flag, we work a lot with an influencer named Destroying, who is a phenomenal Flag ambassador. He was going to be a player, and then I think he did rap for a bit, and now he just does these 1v1
okay,
Flag
okay,
challenges and goes all over the
okay,
US, and he's just phenomenal with youth, and
love it.
and he does it because he loves it, and he has an incredible following, and we give him access to come to all of the big events and
Right.
do the celebrity Flag games and all of these things because he's real and he's authentic.
Again, having the benefit of the brand having access to that kind of community is a gift. I'm just glad that you guys are taking advantage of it in the right way. That comes across genuinely, especially to your point, to very different demographics and broader demographics. So the NFL obviously has access to, if you think about technology and the way to deliver the game, the way to experience the game, whether that's live, whether that's through NFL films or all these different things. You guys are always an experimental bunch when it comes to game presentation and all that. So think about the next few years. What excites you about the most about what's on the horizon for you guys and how you deliver the game and how you bring the game?
Yeah, I mean, this is probably the thing that gets me the most jazzed because the game experience is going to completely transform. Now with AI and with the tools that we have at our disposal, with our streaming partners, I mean, it's going to be great. You've already seen things like alternative casts where we go to Andy's room and we do a whole Toy Story game in real time. when we're streaming games with Netflix all over the world for Christmas, and we're about to do it with Amazon as well this coming year. So those kinds of things are happening. But I think what I'm most excited about is, as AI continues to evolve and change, that technology and the ability to personalize the experience is going to be crazy. We just announced a partnership with Adobe that's going to, I think, change the game a lot in the way that we storytell, in the way that we showcase the game. Every single one of our big broadcast media partners is leveraging that kind of technology so that, you may turn on your app or your streaming platform and not only access one game, but you may be able to access, your own dashboard that will have your fantasy players on there, all the stats, what games are coming up, what happened last week.
Even in the game moments, like where, the last couple of years, they might tell you if there was an interception run back for a touchdown. Sometimes they can tell how fast the guy was running. Just like, interesting stuff.
All those statistics.
Yeah, it just like immediately. I think baseball was pretty good about getting a lot of that stuff now, but seeing what the NFL is doing and how they're, looking at percentage of success of a certain play and down and distance, and
it's really incredible. Our partnership with AWS has been amazing, not only from a stats perspective, and they certainly enhance the broadcast because you are able to call those statistics, real time as they're happening. But think about, even in the realm of making the game safer and player health and safety and the amount of data that we can collect to help predict, future injury and eliminate that, right? So if we can predict it, we can certainly plan better for it, design better equipment, better plays. And so that's really powerful stuff. And it's really, really exciting when you see how that technology plays in that regard. So everything from player safety all the way to the fan experience and everything in between, the statistics, it's just really, really exciting. It's going to bring the game literally to your fingertips. And it's just better for the fan, right? Better for the fan, for sure.
Game, for sure. Well, Marissa, this has been an awesome conversation. I really appreciate your perspective on your career going full circle back to this moment as an ambassador. And we just appreciate your insights around the NFL. Congrats to you and your success, and we're excited to see the draft next month. And hopefully the Cowboys are going to do something this year. We'll see.
We shall see.
Yeah.
Always surprises. Always good surprises.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Giant Stories is a production of Medium Giant and our parent company, the Dallas News Corporation. Interested in learning more about how your brand's story can be better told and sold? Visit mediumgiant.co or send an email to hello@mediumgiant.co.